Around 6 in the morning in Israel, several fighter jets lift off from their bases. Each aircraft is armed with long-range precision missiles designed for strategic strikes. Intelligence gathered by both the CIA and Israeli agencies indicates that a large group of Iran's senior leadership is gathered inside a government compound in Tehran. Among those believed to be present is Ayatollah Khamenei, the country's supreme leader. Just over 2 hours after the jets depart, the missiles reach their destination. They slam into the compound, triggering massive explosions. This strike marks the beginning of a major military operation carried out by Israel and the United States against Iran. In the attack, Iran's top leader is reportedly killed. What followed afterward would quickly escalate into one of the most dramatic confrontations in recent years. Because the situation continues to evolve, new information may emerge even after this report is published. To understand how events reached this point, it is necessary to look at the long and complicated relationship between Iran, Israel, and the United States. Before 1979, Iran was ruled by an authoritarian monarchy under Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi. His government maintained close ties with the United States and the Western world. However, that political order collapsed during the Iranian Revolution. The revolution brought Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini to power, who established the Islamic Republic of Iran. Khomeini sought to reshape the country according to strict interpretations of Islamic law and rejected the pro-Western policies of the former monarchy. The United States and its ally Israel were quickly labeled enemies of the new Iranian state. Opposition to Israel in particular became both a political and ideological priority for the new government. When Khomeini died in 1989, leadership passed to Ali Khamenei, a cleric who had steadily risen within the country's religious and political structure. Over the following decades, tensions between Iran, Israel, and the United States repeatedly intensified. Western nations imposed numerous economic sanctions against Iran. At the same time, Iran provided financial and military support to groups opposed to Israel across the Middle East. Another major point of conflict emerged in 2002 when investigators discovered that Iran had been enriching uranium at 2 undisclosed facilities. Uranium enrichment can be used for civilian nuclear energy, but it can also be used to develop nuclear weapons. The possibility that Iran might eventually build a nuclear bomb deeply concerned the United States and its allies. Iran has consistently denied that it intends to develop nuclear weapons. Nevertheless, efforts to halt the nuclear program intensified. These efforts included cyber operations, targeted assassinations of nuclear scientists, and diplomatic negotiations, particularly by the United States. In 2015, the Obama administration reached a nuclear agreement with Iran, along with several international partners. The deal placed restrictions on Iran's nuclear program in exchange for economic relief. At the time, President Barack Obama described the agreement as a major diplomatic achievement that would prevent Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon. However, the agreement did not last. In 2018, President Donald Trump withdrew the United States from the deal, arguing that the agreement favored Iran and failed to address broader security concerns. After the withdrawal, tensions between the countries began rising again. By 2025, negotiations between Iran and Western powers had resumed, but remained fragile. During this period, Israel and the United States launched airstrikes on several Iranian nuclear facilities using powerful bunker-busting bombs. 3 nuclear sites suffered significant damage during these attacks. At the same time, Iran faced a severe economic crisis. The national currency lost much of its value, inflation surged, and food prices rose dramatically. Public frustration grew across the country. By the end of 2025, widespread protests erupted in multiple cities. Demonstrators demanded political change and called for the end of the Islamic Republic. Some protests remained peaceful, while others turned into riots. During this period, former U.S. President Donald Trump publicly encouraged the Iranian population to rise up against their government, claiming that support was coming. The Iranian government responded with a harsh crackdown. Authorities shut down the internet nationwide, limiting the flow of information to the outside world. Security forces moved to suppress demonstrations across the country. Reports later suggested that thousands of people were killed during the unrest, while around 50,000 individuals were arrested. Meanwhile, the United States began deploying additional military forces to the region, while Trump repeatedly issued warnings towards Iran. On February 26th, a final diplomatic attempt took place in Geneva, where representatives from the United States and Iran tried to find a solution to the growing crisis. The negotiations ultimately failed. 2 days later, on Saturday, February 28th, events took a dramatic turn.
At around 9:40 in the morning in Tehran, a government complex near Hor Square became the focus of attention. The compound reportedly contained offices for the Iranian presidency, the National Security Council, and the Supreme Leader. For months, American intelligence agencies had reportedly been monitoring Ayatollah Khamenei's movements and communications, especially during times of crisis. Analysts had carefully mapped his travel patterns and locations. According to intelligence sources, Khamenei was expected to attend a meeting with several high-ranking officials at the compound that day. Originally, the strike had been planned for nighttime to take advantage of darkness, but when intelligence confirmed that so many senior leaders were present in one location, the attackers decided not to wait. Israeli missiles suddenly struck the compound. At the moment of impact, several senior national security officials were inside the building. The Supreme Leader himself was believed to be in another nearby structure. Satellite imagery taken afterward revealed heavy destruction across the complex. Thick black smoke rose from the damaged buildings, and video footage confirmed large fires in the area. Among those killed in the strike was Ali Husseini Khamenei, Iran's supreme leader. Also reported dead were several senior military figures, including the Chief of Staff of Iran's armed forces, the head of the National Defense Council, the commander of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, and the defense minister. Israeli media reported that roughly 30 senior officials were killed within seconds during the opening strike. The operation reportedly carried different names. In Israel, it was called Operation Roaring Lion, while in the United States, it was referred to as Operation Epic Fury. However, not all leaders were killed in the attack. Iran's president, Masoud Pezeshkian, survived. Another senior official, Ali Larijani, promised that the government would continue functioning and vowed retaliation. The strike on the leadership compound was only the beginning. Following the initial attack, Israeli forces launched additional strikes targeting Iranian air defense systems, particularly around Tehran. The goal was to clear the skies for further operations. Soon afterward, Israel reportedly deployed around 200 fighter jets, sending a large portion of its air force into Iranian airspace. Their mission was to destroy as many Iranian missile systems as possible before they could be used. The United States joined the operation roughly 30 minutes after the initial strike. American forces focused mainly on targets in eastern Iran, areas located farther from Israel. U.S. naval vessels also fired Tomahawk cruise missiles, while American ground forces used rocket artillery systems against Iranian positions. Explosions were reported across several Iranian cities as military bases and command centers were hit. Shortly afterward, Donald Trump released a video publicly confirming the military operation and encouraging the Iranian population to take control of their government. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu delivered a similar message. However, the conflict quickly produced tragic consequences. Shortly after the announcements, an airstrike hit a girls' elementary school in Minab, located in Hormozgan province. Iranian officials claimed that at least 175 people were killed, many of them children, although these figures have not been independently verified. Reports indicated that the school was located close to an Iranian naval base, raising questions about whether the target had been misidentified.
The United States Central Command later announced that it would investigate the incident. Iran soon launched its retaliation, naming the response Operation True Promise 4. Missiles were fired across the region. More than 200 missiles targeted Israel alone. Iranian allies in Yemen, the Houthis, announced that they would resume attacks on shipping lanes in the Red Sea, ending a pause that had followed the 2025 Gaza ceasefire. Missiles and drones were intercepted over several countries in the Middle East. Explosions were reported near Erbil International Airport in Iraq, where American troops are stationed. Later that day, Dubai International Airport was struck by an Iranian drone, forcing the closure of UAE airspace. Fires broke out in nearby luxury hotels, though it remained unclear whether they were caused by direct impacts or debris from intercepted missiles. Other countries were also targeted. Missile attacks struck Bahrain, including areas near the headquarters of the U.S. Navy's Fifth Fleet. In Qatar, officials reported that 66 ballistic missiles had been launched toward the country. In Saudi Arabia, missiles targeted Prince Sultan Air Base, though air defenses successfully intercepted them. Jordan reported intercepting 49 drones and missiles, while Kuwait International Airport was also struck by Iranian drones. Debris from a missile strike in Syria killed several civilians. Several governments in the region warned that they reserved the right to respond. Meanwhile, NATO placed its missile defense systems on heightened alert, while early warning radar in Turkey began monitoring the situation closely. Experts warned that Iran could potentially activate sleeper cells in Europe or North America. At the same time, political debate erupted in the United States. Critics questioned whether the military operation had been legally authorized, since it began without formal approval from Congress. Across the world, protests broke out, some condemning the Iranian government, others opposing American involvement in the conflict. Oil prices surged amid fears that the Strait of Hormuz might be closed, potentially triggering a global energy crisis. Inside Iran, reactions were divided. Some citizens celebrated the death of the supreme leader, while others mourned him. For now, a provisional government has taken control, but uncertainty remains over who will eventually lead the country. The regime has vowed revenge and continues launching strikes against U.S. and Israeli positions. Casualty numbers remain difficult to confirm. Reports suggest that 3 American soldiers have been killed, while several others were injured. Civilian casualties have been reported across multiple countries, including Israel, the UAE, Bahrain, Kuwait, Lebanon, and Iraq. The Iranian Red Crescent estimates that hundreds of people have died in Iran since the strikes began. At this stage, the conflict appears far from over, and many analysts warn that the situation could escalate even further in the coming days.